Welcome to The Bee's Knees. I'm your host, JC Meyer. The Bee's Knees is a podcast wild about native bees. Wild and native bees are under threat worldwide. In each episode, we look at actionable things we can do to support these adorable little guys whose pollination work is crucial for maintaining biodiversity. Thanks for being here. I know you're listening, but take a moment to imagine a scent. Specifically, the sweet scent of blossoming fruit trees, fragrant blooms that will soon deliver us crunchy apples, plump plums, and sweet cherries. Are you with me? Now let's visit Ireland. 1/3 of the country's wild bee species are threatened with extinction, mainly due to dwindling food sources and safe nesting sites. Our guest today is Garry Connolly, president and founder of Host in Ireland. A conversation with his daughter led him to start thinking a bit more deeply about the plight of bees in his homeland. In response, he launched DCs for Bees, an industry initiative led by Host in Ireland to help save Ireland's declining bee population. One of their programs is Orchards in the Community. Let's learn more. Can we start by talking about native bees in Ireland? How are they doing, and what are their biggest threats?
Yeah, native bees in Ireland are having the same challenges as they are globally, to be frank. In Ireland, on the island of Ireland, we have just north of 100 bees. Only one of those guys is the honeybee. So effectively, we've got 100 other solitary bumblebee, carver bees, etc., etc. And, you know, some of the numbers that are coming out are quite extraordinary, that of the 100, 50% of them have seen significant drops since 1980. And we arrive at 2024 where the national scientists of this area, the Irish National Centre for Biodiversity, are now saying that 33% of those face extinction by 2050. So ultimately, yeah, they're under real pressure. And, you know, we can talk about the rationale and the reasons for it. It's the same globally. Over farming, monoculture, stripping out all their natural habitats, the hedgerows, and all of these other things that just because of 1980, 2024 lifestyles of the humans, we're basically going through it with a bulldozer. So yeah, they're under pressure. One of the things that's so important to our initiative, DCs for Bees, is not to get sucked into a challenge of unintended consequences. And I think one of the things at the moment is there's a lot of virtue signaling, and it's really great to have a beehive on the top of your office or in your garden, etc. And I think that we need to look at that really, really carefully, because that's a colony of maybe 40, 50, 60,000 bees. And let's assume, which we know they're not, let's assume that they all gather the same amount. You know, if you've got 200, 300, 400 of your solitary guys, they're just going to be starved out of the place. So again, what we try and do is we say, are all bees under pressure? And the reality is, no, they're not. So using the bees, their challenge as our challenge, we sort of said, you know, what we should do is we should find the scientists that actually are our North Star. Because one of the things that I find in my own life and in other areas is sometimes unintended consequences of good actions mean that you really shouldn't have done it in the first place. And when you're playing with an ecosystem, when you're messing around with an ecosystem, whether it's a business ecosystem or a life, earth ecosystem, you know, one change in something could have a massive negative, detrimental effect. You've just saved the bees, but you've killed off all the ladybirds. That's not a great gig for the whole thing. So actually we were lucky enough that in Ireland we have a centre of excellence called the National Centre for Biodiversity, which publishes for the island of Ireland a pollinator plan. Full, start, middle, end, hundreds of things you can do, whether it's just don't mow your lawn to don't put beehives on your roof and everything in between. So we had a great run book, didn't we? And we had scientists behind it. And like every business community, we had loads of people who had a few money. And we also had a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, that would like a bit of virtue signaling and would like all this type of stuff. And you know what? We have to just embrace everything. Because ultimately, if you're driven by action, which is what we are, you need money, you need resources, and you need people. So our community group, which is in the digital infrastructure space, we said, you know what? Let's launch something. Call it DCs for Bees. Let's create our own pollinator plan, which basically is a refined version of the scientific one. So specific to, well, if you're building a very large data center and you're putting it in the middle of Ireland, then guess what? The 40 acres that you're not building on, leave it away, plant this, do this. So basically that's how it grew. It started to get and solve a problem for a lot of corporates that they wanted to do something. We had the North Star because we qualified it out with the scientists. And then we basically got behind it, and we find ourselves in 2024 now with a whole structure of activities, people around 3 A's: advocacy, awareness, and action. They have to be brought to the table. And we've 59 ambassadors now. We've got our own pollinator plan. We have revisions of that because the scientists are constantly revising. So we basically update ours. So between that, then that leads ourselves into, okay, there's nothing like when we turn all that talk into action, because what we can do is we can create opportunities of common purpose. And when we create these opportunities of common purpose, we bring people from all parts of organizations, not the big mouths like me who are meant to be the leaders and stuff, but the person from accounts, the person from warehouse who have passion. So we bring them together around action-orientated activities, like, for instance, orchards in the community. What's orchards in the community? Well, it's everything you want it to be for a community. The community of bees, the community of society, and the community of business, all bound together by this common purpose to plant as many orchards in as many places as possible. So you got to keep looking after the whole thing. And therefore, what we did is orchards in the community. We launched it, 3 planting seasons only ago. And as of this last dormant season, we're up to 4,000 orchards. That's 20,000 trees in 32 counties. For those of your listeners who aren't overly familiar, Ireland is 2 countries, but bees don't understand borders. So this is a national geographic initiative feeding into the national pollinator plan. So we have 32 counties in Ireland, and we managed to be able to find community groups like schools, nursing homes, tidy towns groups, whatever, in every single one of the counties. And we're planted 20,000 in 3. So now we have this very unique situation, which is great, where we've got the same type of tree. Why are orchards fantastic? Because they flower early. So the poor little solitary guys, when they come out, they're starving. They see these beautiful trees. That's great. They're also great for habitat because underneath them is great for the ground-based guys. And then ultimately it gives you a great opportunity because people love apples at the end to eat, or pears or plums and stuff. So it becomes like a trophy and people tend to look after them. Unfortunately, beech trees and oak trees and these guys, they're great and deciduous. They're great and all, but you can't eat them. So it's got a nice little top and tail. And it also gives us an opportunity to observe these as they grow. And even maybe do some data collection on it with the National Biodiversity Group. Yeah. And here are people who are prepared to do really great work for stuff that aren't even being paid for. So it seems that we're onto something where you find an area of common purpose. And often money people, spreadsheet people, they're suits. How do you find a way to connect them with people who are probably the other end of the spectrum, who are into earth and into that? Well, you do it via an orchard. And why are you doing the orchard? Because of the bee guys.
Do you have plans to expand on or otherwise develop the orchards program?
We asked the national pollinator people, okay, orchards, that's a great start. We'll come back to that again. But what else can we do to augment that? And I'll let you know a little secret. There are bulbs underneath the orchards. So next year, what we'll have bulbs in the community. And that'll be 1 million bulbs. That's the target, to augment the orchards, to create this wonderful meadow which will stop them cutting the grass underneath the orchards, which will basically then be a pit stop for a bigger pit stop, which then will hopefully have corridors. So it's this idea of constant asking people who understand the science, connecting it with people who want to do the work and care for the work, and then connecting that in a way and presenting it in a way to the business community so that they can get on board. So it's that common purpose thing, always going back to science, always going back to the why. And the why is because bees are starving, bees are dying, bees are losing their habitat. And even if there's one person from all the gang we're talking to who, through our activities, our awareness and our advocacy, just one, gets himself or her into a position at some stage to say, no, because of my learnings, it's a success.
You and your daughter have another project that I love.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about the bee houses you build.
Oh, yeah. Airbnb, basically. Yeah, what we did was, for my sins, I've got a bit of a thing now for, obviously I know a bit more about bees than I ever did. But I'm of an age now where I was either going to buy a Ferrari or having an affair or do something crazy, you know? So I got into woodwork, right? I got into making stuff because I spent too much time on screens and I'm not making anything. Well, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but I'm not making anything tangible. So we got ourselves a little engraver to see could it engrave things. And of course, we then realized that it could engrave slate, wood, metal. And we live in a forest. Forests fall over. So we cut the wood effectively. It's not great for a podcast, but I'll show you. They're just simple bee hotels. And they are for the solitary bees, and they are a half cross cut of wood with a little bit of protection on the top from the rain. And it's great because it's tangible and it's something that you can bring into a community and show them. And my experience in life is that when you give something to somebody free without any expectation, it's amazing that olive tree branch, what it does. And we just say, put that in your community, put that in your school. And all we ask is that you just leave it wild and native 2, 4, 5 meters around it as far as you can. Don't do anything. Don't cut the grass around it. Don't put any roses. Don't put any, just let natural go on. And we have now made 1,500 of them. In fact, a big gang of them went out with our orchards last year to augment the orchards. Again, it's about sort of finding purpose. Some are nice, some are more decorative than others. But what it does is it starts a conversation for people to ask, why would I need them? And that's all you're looking for. So rather than preaching to people that they should do something, what you're looking for is people to say, why would I need one of them? There's bees everywhere. And that's your segue in to say, well, actually dying out. And that's really what we're looking for. We use them, I guess it's a bit like a business card back in the day. You know, it's a conversational piece. Oh, that's a lovely font. Oh, you've changed your title. You know, it's just these things that are tangible that help people a conversation. And now we're lucky enough that with the community groups that we are working with on the orchards, they've started now to come back to us and say, could we get a few more of them? Job done.
Because you are focused on the science and are working with the National Biodiversity Data Center, you have the opportunity to track concurrent pollination success. First, tell us what is concurrent pollination success, and have you had any results?
So yes, this is an interesting byproduct or a positive unintended consequences of planting nearly 20,000 fruit trees, is that they're all effectively going to be planted or have been planted in the same 2.5 planting seasons. So they're all relatively at the same growth stage. So what that means is that the national pollinator people will commence a process next spring where they will now start to use those 4,000 orchards, 20,000 trees to connect with the people who are managing them, to be able to ask them on particular days or different days during the year to do data gathering. So how many bees, what types of bees are on the same product or same growing product at the same time? Because one of the great challenges we have is that if you ask two people, one in a lavender field and one on roses or other, at the same time of year to give you a count, you'll get totally skewed different answers. This way, at least we know, because they were centrally managed, centrally distributed to all 32 counties, they'll be able to correlate the validity of the data. And they won't have to have caveats, which dilutes the value of the data. So yeah, it's great. 20,000 trees next year with all the schools, the community groups, the nursing homes, they'll be asked, go out, take a picture, take a stat, feed it in. And of course, over the years, hopefully that becomes better and better and better. And then they can effectively, the central pollinator people, not ourselves, they can then deduce some findings, good, bad, or indifferent. So that's effectively what the whole data gathering post-planting gives us the opportunity to do.
So what's next for DC for Bees?
So yeah, what's next for, well, whatever the Una Fitzpatrick and her people down the National Biodiversity Data Centre tell us is the next thing that we should be considering. Then we will bring our creativity, our abilities to mobilize people. So that's where it'll lead us. But what's interesting is we get requests from international people for the run book, and we just give them all the info we have. Because again, unintended consequences is that what works in Ireland, in our ecosystem, our biodiversity spread, may not work in South Dakota. The intent will, though. The intent and the basic outline will. All you have to do then is find your scientist, find your biodiversity or pollinator group. But the rest is pretty straightforward. But it's not a one thing fits all. You can't actually apply the 60 to 100 national pollinator things to do for Ireland in France. So yeah, where will it go? Who knows? Who knows? We're being driven by the outside in quite a bit, which is interesting. Community groups are telling us, oh yeah, you delivered on that. We're building a bit more trust. We're building more trust with the national biodiversity people. The partners seem to like it. So yeah, it'll go wherever it goes, but the intent will always be right. And we'll try and look after the bees. They're the most important person to have front and center in all that we do.
Putting bees front and center. I love Garry's attitude that everything DC's for Bees will do will follow the science, they'll ask the experts, and then put their resources to work, ensuring Ireland's native bees are given a fighting chance to survive and thrive. Thanks as always for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this Irish jaunt. Please check out the website to learn more about orchards in the community and see photos of Garry's bee hotels. Until next time, let's take action.